I enjoy adding 3D elements to my cosplays. I feel like 3D printing has a really important role to play when it comes to cosplaying. It can do things that we don't necessarily find available in foam or fabric or plastics or resins. So it really does have an important place. It can do mechanical pieces, it can do precision pieces in a manner that you can't really do with these other things. And while I have seen a lot of awesome foam smiths make amazing armors and skeletal systems and things that are very mechanical, I am not capable of that. I have never been able to get foam to do what I want, but I have a history of 3D modeling from college, and working with FreeCAD and other programs really makes sense to me. I prefer FreeCAD over Blender or Nobad Sculpt, mostly because I enjoy the precision of being able to make these more mechanical pieces and being able to adjust them so minutely so that they can fit together and work together like a machine, right? Um, so when I work in the 3D realm, I am a little bit unconventional with it. I know that a lot of creators will do body scans and they will do measurements in their own particular way. I'm still kind of a like stones and mortar kind of person. I like to be able to touch things, even though I will be printing them. Um, so when I start my 3D print files, I will usually create kind of a mock-up that is a physical thing that I can touch and manipulate in order to get the measurements that I need before I even get started. So this video is going to kind of walk you through my process from start to finish of how I create my STL files. Um, and in the end, we'll see kind of how some of these print out. I don't have all of them printed for this particular piece yet, but you can get an idea of how things go from start to finish on this project.
So I was having a hard time figuring out how I was going to take this one-dimensional design that I've created for the back of my upcoming costume for my Mina into a three-dimensional object. These are going to be 3D printed pieces, but I need to be able to figure out how to measure depth on them and make them work for the proportions of my body. So I know that these are all going to work like when it comes to a 2D space, but not a 3D space. So what I have done in order to kind of like map out is I went out and got some wire and I started like attaching my whoop goodness. I started pinning. That's why it fell. It's not on here very well. I'm trying to hold it on with pins. It doesn't work for my dress form very well. But I've started trying to put wire over the top of this, like you would do in a 3D program, right? Where you create kind of like a mask pattern, one direction, as well as the profile view direction, so that you can kind of copy those shapes into your wireframe making. I am working on FreeCAD, so this is not something that I really use in FreeCAD, but if I've got the dimensions kind of already mapped out, like I can measure this wire now and know how big I need to make it, and I can measure these shapes and know how large I need to make them in space. And then I didn't want to have to make wire for all of them, so I made the top one, which I knew was going to be the largest, and then down here I made the smallest one, and then I know that I was going to have to gradually get larger as I went up to the top. So I kind of just mathed it out here where I just broke it down into like increments of 1/8 inch all the way down until I got up to the top. Then I know kind of like the profile view and the face view, so the face view and the profile view of all of these pieces as I go down. There is more detail to be added to them. As you can see, like I kind of started drawing it out here, like that profile piece is actually going to be kind of in this more hourglass shape. These are going to have some more refined details here, but at least I know the height, like the depth, as well as the width shapes on these things. And so I think I'm getting close enough to start adding them to like my FreeCAD and start working on it. The other thing that I was working on, you can see this other piece of wire here, is this is kind of almost like a hip bone or a pelvis like configuration, just like this is a spine and this is a shoulder blade. And I wanted to figure out kind of like the amount of curvature I was going to need to make it fit around like my hip area. So I took this wire and kind of bent it around so that I know like what kind of curvature I'm going to need to put into FreeCAD in order to make this hug my body in a way that fits more naturally and to my personal measurements. So that is what I'm working on. This is going to probably be the most tedious 3D print build I have ever attempted, but I'm feeling a little bit more optimistic about it, and I'm excited to start moving forward on it. All right, so I am on technically day 2 of this, but I didn't get very far on it yesterday, so I'm not really counting yesterday. I am working on designing the spine pieces for the back of my power suit for Kaiju 8. These are the initial sketches that I did, kind of just figuring out the different faces of it. I also kind of did a little mock-up here, drawing to get it to the actual size, and then kind of made like a little wire outline of what I wanted the contours to look like. And then this is what I have come up with. I am still debating whether or not I'm going to make it a square edge over here, or if I'm going to make it kind of more diamond shaped over here. So we're going to kind of mess with that. This is what it is looking like right now. And I'm pretty pleased with that. So we're going to maybe do an experimental print and see how I like all of this is turning out.
So now that you've seen the main spine pieces finished on this piece, I am going to move on to what is essentially kind of a belt, but also is meant to look like a mechanical hip. And the kind of struggles that I had with that, the previous pieces with the spine were things that I was pretty familiar with doing in FreeCAD, but the hip was generally entering into territory that I hadn't really had much experience with. So I am learning how to use additive like piping shapes and pretty much making the program work in a way that I haven't done before. So it was a challenge, but it also helped me inform how I can do later portions of this project. The last and most difficult part of this project was working on the pauldrons for the armor. The shoulder armor is something that I'm very, very unfamiliar with. I usually work with pretty like solid, flat-faced objects, and getting that shoulder curve was going to be quite difficult. So when I started, I used wire again, as I did at the beginning, in order to create the shape that I needed. And from there, kind of graphed out an idea on paper what I was looking for. And then we could move on to using some of the skills that I learned making the hip bone structure to create the piping that would curve around the shoulder of the arm. And I really feel like it was probably the piece of this whole project that I am most proud of in the end. I'm very excited about how it turned out.